Hello and welcome back to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and in today's episode, we're going back to Middle-earth for one of my favorite toy lines that's out these days from Diamond Select, and that would be the Lord of the Rings. And this time around, I'm very excited today to talk to you about Series 6 of the figures. Today, we've got Samwise Gamgee and Saruman. And that was an unsolicited endorsement because I really think that the Diamond Select Lord of the Rings action figures are some of the best things that company has done in years when it comes to their figures. The entire line has had excellent likenesses, amazing accessories, really great paint job. That Build-A-Figure Sauron was just wild. So yeah, this has really been one of my favorite things they've done in a long time, and that's saying quite a lot. We're still quite a ways from completing all the key characters in the series, but now we're starting to get a little bit deeper into the world of the hobbits, as well as a few more of the bad guys in the franchise. So yeah, this is going to be a really fun review today. I can't wait to dig into these figures, but first things first, let's talk about this packaging. And these Lord of the Rings figures are pretty much what you get for just about any toy these days that comes from Diamond that's not a Marvel Select figure. They're both in pretty much identical boxes, with the only difference just being that their names are on the bottom of each of these. But beyond that, there's really not much to separate the two of them. It's a very simple rectangular box with a huge window on the front to let you see the figure and the many numerous accessories that they each come with. And we've also got a window on the left and right side, as well as the Diamond Select sunroof on the top of the packaging. Now, as far as the back of the boxes go, again, these are pretty much identical. There's really zero difference between Samwise or Saruman. There's no bios, there's really nothing on there other than just images of these toys, as well as a look at who else was in some of the previous series, which includes, in this case, a look at who was in Series 4 and Series 5. There is a short little recap of what the Lord of the Rings is, in case you didn't know, and maybe you've been living under a rock with Gollum for the last few decades. But beyond that, really nothing of major importance on the back of this packaging, but I will say it's a really nice design front and back on these things, and I really like the whole ring design that's going on with this thing too, but again, not really much to talk about with this packaging. It's pretty much just there to be opened and looked at, although I should mention it is a collector-friendly box. The most important information here is just that it lets you know who made this figure, and both of them were designed by Eamon O'Donoghue and sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios. So it might seem like I'm rushing this part of the video a little bit here, and that's because yes, I am rushing it because I want to get these figures out of the packaging right now and get a closer look at them from both angles. That's what I normally will say. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that right now. Get them out of the box, and I'll show you why these figures are some of my favorites from Diamond Select, and really of just about any toy company in the last few years. And let's see if I can get you feeling the same way about these toys too. And here are our Lord of the Rings figures out of the packaging, ready to go. There is quite a height difference here, as you can tell. And that size difference is going to make some problems if we're trying to do any rotations or side-by-side comparisons. So I think the way that we're going to get this review started is actually by tackling these guys individually, and then we'll come back to them together a little bit later on. But at the very least, I do want to point out, if we're going to do some size comparisons off the bat, you can clearly see that, well, the height is pretty darn accurate to how it would be in the film, so that's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and jump first into Saruman, and let's start talking about him a little more. Now let's ask the question of whether or not this looks like Christopher Lee. Does this look like the actor who portrayed Saruman in the Lord of the Rings trilogy? And I have to say, yes, I'm actually very impressed by this particular head sculpt. I saw this at Toy Fair, and it was pretty great. And, you know, typically what you see at Toy Fair is hand-painted prototypes. It's not what we're going to be showing off here in these videos. But that prototype looked amazing, and I was hoping that it would look just as good in hand. And I have to say that it does. It looks pretty much darn tootin' almost identical, to be quite honest. It's really great. It's an excellent head sculpt. It captures a lot of the finer details of Saruman's face as well as his hair. I do have to really point out the paint job on this figure too, though, because I think the paint job is also where this guy's really excelling at here. So I've talked a lot in the past about how Diamond Select figures have tended to be very kind of gloppy. The paint was never really that impressive, but they've really gotten a lot better, and that turning point was the Lord of the Rings figures. And this figure in particular, you can really see what I'm talking about here. There's a lot more finer detail. Just overall very nice, clean. You know, one of the things too I would say is not as luminous as a lot of other figures would look. You know, sometimes the pinks would be like really bright or just really red. This feels a lot more naturalistic, the way that it should look. I also appreciate the toning in his beard. You can see there's some nice looking beard stuff going on there. And even just the sculpting in his hair too. I mean, that's just really nice looking, glorious long head of hair. I wonder what kind of shampoo and conditioner that Saruman uses to get this kind of look. But yeah, you can see, I mean, there's some actual different shading, if you will, that's on the back of his hair as well as on the top of his head. So, you know, we're getting some really fine detail here, and that goes a long way to making this look like who it's supposed to look like. So yeah, it looks really great here. If anything, I would say that there is a little bit of excess schmutz, let's just call it, right over here by his temple. That's going to be one of those user mileage may vary situations. because to me it's kind of like the cutoff point of where the paint would be versus where they apply this hairpiece, because I believe that looks like this is not like a sculpted one-piece thing. This hair, it looks like it's a separate attachment, especially based on the fact that it's like a little bit of a different material than the rest of the figure. Like, yeah, this is much harder. This is a little bit more rubbery. So there's a little bit of schmutz there. That would have otherwise been hidden had this hair been placed a little bit differently. But yeah, you guys can see that it is very nicely done. Just wonderful detail. The cheekbones, the nose, the brow, it is all there. And while we're at it and we're looking at Saruman, let's spend some time too looking at the rest of this figure here, and that's going to include the outfit. And just again, loaded with detail. These Lord of the Rings figures have just been top-notch when it comes to their outfits. I said the heads were amazing, but it's really the entire whole 9 yards. And I think, to be totally accurate, this is meant to be how we see Saruman in the Fellowship. I don't quite remember if he's wearing similar outfits in the other 2 films, but pretty positive this is meant to be when we first meet him in the Fellowship. And the robes are just great, wonderfully flowing, but not just that, too, just so much little design work and very intricate little design work in this. And you could see it here across the lapels, on his sash, on his shirt as well. The back of the figure is not as interesting because, after all, these are just long wizard robes, so not going to be the most thrilling thing to look at here. But, the outfit itself is pretty darn intensive. There's a lot of detail here. I mean, there's even a drawstring that's going across his body here. I mean, that's unexpected. And plus, he has his boots, which are a little hard to see because they're covered. Actually, I can't really show it to you at all, but what I could see when I did pick them up and play with them a little bit more was that, yeah, they're not just flat. There's actually some laces and boot texture. I don't think there's a ton going on underneath him, though. I'm not going to totally expose Saruman here. But, overall, for what we see, it's pretty great. This is really, really excellent work. Now, let's trade our whiz-biz for some hobbits here. So I've got Samwise now in front of us, and let's talk about this head sculpt here. Now, when I first saw this in package, I kind of thought to myself, something looked a little off with him, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And what it was to me was, I think the head was actually just not put down all the way, because it looked like almost his head was just too darn long for the rest of his body. And that is because this head is detachable. We'll get back to why a little bit later on. But, seeing him here, I still think that it's a good version of Sean Astin, but maybe a little too idealized and a little overly young. This doesn't quite look like the actual era of when we would have seen this version of Sean Astin, but it's really close. It's very, very close. It's almost like a few years too young looking, but it's overall still a very, very good looking figure here. I think the likeness on him is still pretty good, and also the expression is very good. This feels like a very Sam expression. I just think what's missing, it might just be the cheeks, perhaps that's what it is. Just something doesn't quite look like it's, Sam from Lord of the Rings. It's just missing a little bit of something there, but it's really, really close. I do think the hair, though, is really nice. They did some great detail work with that front and back. And again, just like Saruman, lots of good paint detail. So overall, very good. It's hard to say which one is the better of the two, but overall, they're both really good. And as far as outfit goes, really right now, Samwise is kind of incomplete, and we'll deck him out in a few moments. But this is kind of him just as is. You can see his lovely looking hobbit feet over there. We'll do a quick turn. You can see that he's got his suspenders here. Just again, like I was saying, looks just as good. Great amount of folds that look just very nice. Add a lot of realism to this figure. He's got even buttons on him. The belt is looking nice. I mean, the hobbit feet are just kind of nuts. They're very hairy. That's the best way to say it. I was going to say there's lots of hair in them. No, they're hairy. That's the word for that. But they're accurate. That's how those hobbit feet should be looking. So Samwise, again, looking great. But let's start talking articulation here. And since Samwise is still not wearing all of his accessories, we should be able to really see it all. And for this figure here, Samwise is pretty much totally unhindered as is. And so that includes a ball-jointed neck that does kind of go up and down. My figure in particular, it just needs to be pushed down a little bit. Otherwise, the neck will look a little too long. We have ball-jointed shoulders, which are a little stiff. You can hear how stiff they are, but we got ball-jointed shoulders. We have a single-jointed elbow as well, so we can get some articulation. The wrists do also bend and flex. I should mention, I did hit this figure up with a blow dryer real quick before filming this, so I did loosen up the joints a little bit, but I probably should have had them on there longer. Now the chest section moves. Typically the waists do not, and that's pretty much the same here for this figure, but we do have some good articulation on the legs. That's like the one spot you never really have to worry about with Diamond, unless, well, we'll get to that in a minute with Saruman. But the legs are always very, very nicely articulated as far as like the hip area goes. The knees have a single joint. That's good flexibility there. Nothing bad. And our feet can also bend and flex. Now you really see how hairy those things are. My goodness, right? And yes, in case you're wondering, I have both my figures on stands just because, like, I know that they can stand up on their own, but I just want to save myself the hassle while I'm doing this video. And these stands, by the way, are the Diamond Select official stands. I think the NECA ones tend to be a little too small as far as their pegs go. So really do yourself a favor and try and find the Diamond specific ones. Now, as far as Saruman goes, unfortunately, we're not going to really be looking at his legs here because they are blocked by this robe, and yeah, you just can't move these things at all. Now, sometimes the figures have had like a slit on the side of them, but let's see, this Saruman, he does not. Okay, there's no slit there. So sometimes with these types of figures, they would put a slit so you could get some more mobility with them, but not in this case, especially not with this additional robe here. So you're not going to really be able to move his legs at all. So I definitely urge you to get a base. Again, these robed wizards tend to be very sturdy as far as just planting them down and not having to move, and they'll be fine. But, you know, yeah, just save yourself the time. So we're not even going to talk about leg articulation. As far as what he does have visibly, I think the head should have a little bit of movement, but yeah, I didn't expect it to have much. Whenever there's a character with long hair, they tend to just not really have much mobility, and that's the case here. Likewise, the chest does move a little bit. Actually, the chest moves decently. It's just kind of hard to work it, and the waist still does not move. So really, all the action is gonna just be in these arms here, which are so stiff. So stiff, but they're moving at least. So yeah, let's move on from articulation though, and let's start talking about some of the different accessories here. I'm going to start with Saruman first, just because I already got him out here, and it kind of does tie into his articulation a little bit. But let's start talking about accessories with our Saruman, because his accessories actually do kind of sort of tie into the articulation. And so what I mean by that is Saruman actually has an additional set of arms. So, you know, we didn't really talk much about his mobility here. That's because it ain't great. I mean, you can basically kind of do this with them, and it just looks awkward and weird and not worth it. I mean, his wrists still do move, but again, hindered very much by this robe. So, you know, you can't really get him in a lot of poses, so you got to make up for that. And how do we do that? We pop some arms off. So, believe it or not, our Saruman here actually comes with a second pair of arms. And that would be these arms over here. These ones are already bent as opposed to the straight arms that we just had on him. So these arms will be for him to be a little bit more Machiavellian looking perhaps. So let's go ahead and pop these on, see how easy they go on, hopefully. I mean, to be fair, the arms popped off very nicely. I'm hoping that these will go on just as smoothly. And so far the answer is yes. See that in? That it looks like it's, yep, okay, it looks like it's in. There we go, all right. So, okay, that actually was a lot easier than I expected. Cool. I love it when that happens in these videos. So this is Saruman with his other arms now on him. So this is how they're going to keep the joints nice, and you know, again, you can still see them exposed to a degree. So what they're doing here is to make sure that he remains articulated, but without really kind of ruining the line of the figure itself as much as possible, because you still have that visible joint hanging out right there. But it does look really cool the way it is here. Now, in addition to that, our Saruman here, he's not packing as many accessories as Samwise is because these arms are quite massive and take up a lot of space here. But we do have this hand over here, and this hand fits this nice little orb. This is him and his connection to Sauron, and that fits in very nicely. Not really any detail there, it's just a big old translucent looking marble. So yeah, it's there though. It's nice that it's been included. It's kind of just got this nice blood red color to it. Very pretty, very smooth, nice and simple to the point. So that's cool looking, but we're not finished yet. And that's because Saruman comes with one additional hand, and that'll be this one over here, which looks like it's meant to hold something, and well, it is. And that's because our Saruman comes with this wizarding staff over here, this staff here, which we see him use throughout the series. Very nice, elegant, wonderfully designed here. And the way we're going to get this into his hand is by swapping out this one that's currently on him. So let's do that right now. And for safety purposes, we'll get rid of this giant orb here. And we'll just, again, once more see how easy it is to yank it off and put it back on. And I love it when a plan comes together. There we go. So let's go ahead now and get this guy through his hand, which luckily looks like it's going to be very easy because there's no bottom part to the staff here, as in there's no like little bottom design or anything like that. It's just kind of a straight cylinder. So that does make it a lot easier to play with and articulate and move around. And there you have it. Saruman's now got his accessories on. He is ready to do the bidding of his evil, evil masters, and he looks great. He looks amazing. And just because I already have him here, I am going to do a figure comparison a little bit earlier than I normally do in these videos. And I'm going to just put him side by side with Gandalf so you can see how he matches up and how he looks, and what a cool looking pair of figures. I mean, really, like, this whole wave is amazing. This entire Lord of the Rings series is just truly epic. So here is how Gandalf looks next to our Saruman. They look amazing together. This is, man, these are great looking figures, for real. And so different. Everybody's tooled differently. Everybody's unique. That's like one of the coolest things about this series too. But there they are side by side. They look magnificent. But let's get back to our Hobbit and take a look at all of Sam's accessories. So as I already mentioned, Sam has a bunch of things here, and I guess we kind of have to dress him up to get all these accessories on him. So we'll start with what we have here first. This is Sam's backpack. And you might remember this from the movie. This is where he's carrying his bedroll, his many, many pots and pans, and at least some of his snacks. But this is very nice looking here. I was curious how this was going to actually work. If it was going to have like a peg or something like a G.I. Joe figure would have had, but no, it looks like we actually got to get his arms through this somehow. And luckily, it looks like the material for the straps is very soft. So I'm hoping we can do this without having to remove his arms. Let's find out right now as I try to do this on camera, but this is definitely a challenging thing here. I'm afraid to like move it too far, but I think I'm gonna have to just do that. So I'm gonna have to just be brave here, and I think that's the way to do it. Yep, so we just gotta be brave and hope for the best, but that actually wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be. So there we go. We've got the backpack on Sam, and it is very secure on this as well. So that's our first accessory, but we also have another one here. This is Sam's satchel, let's call it, I guess. That sounds like a word for it. I'm going to put it on, I'm guessing, I don't know, I think this arm maybe? You know, I actually don't remember if there's a proper arm to have this across, but this is just the way I'm going to do it, based on the way the bag is looking and the weight of it. So let's see if we can do this, or how we're going to do this. I feel like the easiest thing to do is actually take the head off. So maybe we should do that, and I'll show you guys the other accessory. And that would be this over here. This is Sam's cape. So yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and use this and see how this is gonna work. Like, because we can't really put this over here. I don't think the backpack is supposed to go on top of the cape. This is interesting now. So based on the images I saw online, it actually looks like you're not gonna be able to get both on at the same time. I don't think you can. So I think unfortunately, we're gonna have to lose the backpack if we want Sam to get his cape on, which I kinda do. So I guess we're gonna take this thing off again and hope for the best. And yeah, I'll come back and try this one more time with the cape, which should be a lot easier. So yeah, that took no time at all. That was actually really easy. And it looks like, according to the back of the package, that actually is the correct way for this satchel to go on him. So yeah, that fits just nicely in. Just so you guys can see, there really is absolutely no way to have him wear the backpack and the cape at the same time. That's just going to be impossible. There's just not enough space here for that. So it's one or the other, unfortunately. You'll have to make the decision of what's more important to you. But really, as long as he has the satchel, I think the cape is just fine. Now, in addition to that, Sam has a bunch of hands. We actually have 3 additional hands besides what's currently on him. So at the moment, he has a pair of open fists where you can put some accessories on that we'll get to in another moment. But we also have some open hands, completely open hands to grip some other things potentially. Those are nice. But the hand I think that's kind of really cool is this one here. And this one here has the gift from Galadriel, which is some of that, I forget what it's called now, but it's basically that sort of healing potion that they get. So I think I will actually just do a hand swap with this, just to show you how that's gonna look. Squeaky, squeaky. Okay, and it's a really long peg. Is it me, or does that just look really long? I don't know. There we go. So now we've got our Hobbit with his healing salve. That looks very nice. And a good amount of detail on that too. Let's get his head a little more straight. So that's that. But we also have a few other things to talk about. One of which is right here. Sam gets his own sword. This is what he would have carried in the films. So we've got Sam's sword here. Again, very nice detail. I know it can be a little hard to see, but the hilt has some design work on it. Really cool looking sword. You know, I don't know if I remember like looking at his sword that closely in the film. So it's very nice to actually get to have a chance to like really soak in all those details on it. And in addition to the sword, we also have a sheath for it here. I'm not sure if this is meant to attach to anything though. I don't think it does. There's really like nothing for him to attach it to. But we do have the sword here, and supposedly this should fit in it, and it does. So you can actually have your sword sheathed. That sounds like a word. Sword sheath. You try saying that. It's not easy. And last but not least, we have a sword that is not Sam's. This is actually Frodo's Sting, but it's in glowing mode. It's currently in the glow because it senses some orcs nearby. That's really cool. So if you want to complete your Frodo figure, you got to get Samwise here, and that makes perfect sense because without Samwise, who is Frodo really? So yeah, this is your way to get glowing Sting, but that's not all. Because the final accessory might be one of the nerdiest things we've ever seen with these figures, and that's saying a lot, but it's also like one of the coolest things. If you don't recognize this, I wouldn't blame you for it. This is Sam's box of spices. This is his seasonings. Yes, they actually included his seasonings as an accessory, and it's got some really nice paintwork and some excellent detail on it. No, it does not open, but there is a clasp there, which is pretty darn cool looking. But wow, like what an amazing accessory to include with this figure. So yeah, they've really loaded Samwise up here with a lot of things. And just for the sake of completion, I do want to see if I can get the sword in his hand, because it looks like that thumb is closed on the fingers, meaning, let's see, it might be a little bit harder to get that in there without heating it up first. No, okay, we did it. Actually, and that thumb is not closed. Sometimes it looks like it's closed because of paint that will dry on it, but in reality, no, it is not. So we can, in fact, get that sword on him. And there we go. So Sam's got healing potion in one hand, sword in the other. He is ready for some action. This is really cool now that he's all decked out. And just for comparison's sake, let's go ahead and bring in one of Sam's best friend ever in the films, Gollum. He loves Gollum, right? No, he doesn't. Okay, that's a total lie. But yeah, just so you guys can see how Gollum looks. Gollum is on the smaller side compared to everybody else because he is just such an interesting looking, weirdly shaped character. But again, we're talking scales and things like that. I mean, it's pretty wild to see these guys side by side. And then if we plop down Saruman behind him, well, then it just gets even more interesting and unique. But yeah, just check out the different sizes that everybody has here as we kind of start looking at everybody. And how cool is that? Like, man, just seeing these guys together, just seeing only these three, I'm already just like, wow, I love this. So let's just do a few more comparisons and I'll give you guys my final thoughts. And let's compare these guys now to a Marvel Legends Rogue figure from the X-Men 97 series. And keep in mind here, this is important to note, a lot of folks don't realize this, but Diamond Select figures are actually 110 scale, whereas Marvel Legends are 112. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there's a reason why Samwise here is nearly as tall as Rogue. And that's because he is actually a scale slightly larger. So if Rogue was going to be in scale with these guys, she'd be a little bit taller like Saruman is here. So 110 means it's a little bigger than 112. That's what's up with the size discrepancy. So they really won't fit in well with Marvel Legends or things like that. And speaking of, things like that would be something like this very uncharacteristic Hulk Hogan action figure from Mattel's WWE Elite series. Hogan's on the bigger side, of course, so you can get away with that, but, you know, you're really not going to fit too well there, unfortunately. And just for curiosity's sake, I'm going to get rid of Hogan here. I'm going to try a Sector's Nacelle Company figure here. And yeah, that's also too darn small. That's definitely too small. It is meant to be a 112 figure, but don't quite think it's there. But speaking of Nacelle, let's try a Biker Mice from Mars figures. These are going to be on the channel here as well if you want to see some reviews with them. These guys actually are much closer in height. So I kind of wonder what scale they're meant to be. I mean, he actually looks like he is just as tall, if not taller, than Saruman. So that's kind of interesting. And just to show you a little bit more of the different scales that we can play with here, I mean, I'm going to bring in some orcs too. Here's one orc. Here is another orc that may or may not stand up. We'll find out here. Let's put Boromir in the back for a second. Why the heck not? Look how happy Boromir is. He's like, look, I'm alive. I'm not dead yet. And we'll squeeze Frodo into the front as well. Look at how tiny Frodo looks compared to everybody else. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is like our class photo, if you will. Just to give you an idea of how everybody scales up. Keeping in mind that Saruman and Samwise are on bases. But yeah, again, like just so much unique tooling with this series. And everybody's got different heights. Everybody looks so good together. Man, for real, if you have been missing out on these Lord of the Rings figures, I really suggest you stop, because these are some of the best things that Diamond has put out in like forever. It has absolutely changed the game for what they're doing with their figures. They look amazing. I can't recommend them enough. So that's our look at Lord of the Rings figures from Diamond Select. We've got Saruman on the left, Samwise on the right. Just an amazing line, not to be missed at all, you guys. And if you want to pick these up for yourselves, go ahead and check out my affiliate links in the description of this video below. We'll have a few different places you can check them out and pick them up. And if you do, it helps this channel at no extra cost to you. But for real, these are just such amazing figures. I'd love to hear what you think about them because I think they're some of the best things right now out there on the market. Definitely worth the price. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys here next time.